Welcome back to the news at 10. A gas explosion has reportedly occurred at the Nembe Creek trunk line operated by the Iteo Eastern Exploration and Production Company in Nembe local government area of Bayelsa State. The explosion, which occurred at about 4 a.m. near Oil Well 7, sacked residents of 7 communities in Nembe, and many are reportedly missing, including women and children. We'll give more on this as we receive details. Let's now join our London Bureau for Around the World in 5. Here's Joyce Ohaja.
Good evening from the Channel's newsroom in London. Tonight we begin in Mogadishu, where a suicide car bombing at a hotel has killed at least 29 people and injured another 80. It happened in one of the Somali capital's busiest streets, and the extremist group Al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility. Isabel Morgan reports.
This was the scene after the suicide bomber struck late on Thursday night. He blew himself up in his car outside the Makkah Al Mukarrama hotel, tearing off the front of the building. It's in a popular district filled with shops and restaurants, and the powerful blast caused devastation. Emergency services worked throughout the night to rescue people caught up in the explosions, and the toll of death and injury steadily mounted. From early morning and throughout the next day, gunfire continued to ring out across the city, as some of the militants holed up in a nearby building were besieged by security forces. Somalia has been in the grip of lawlessness and violence since 1991. Al-Shabaab is linked to Al-Qaeda and is fighting to dislodge the country's Western-backed government. Isabel Morgan, Channels Television News.
We go now to the situation in India and Pakistan. Although relations are still tense between the neighbouring nuclear powers, there are positive signs that the risk of all-out war is decreasing. None more so than what happened at a crossing point on the Indo-Pakistani border. Crowds had gathered to greet the convoy carrying the captured Indian pilot released by Pakistan in what was described as a peace gesture. They celebrated the return home of a man deemed to be a national hero. Wing Commander Abhinandan's jet fighter was shot down on Wednesday, and he has become the human face of the most recent conflict between the two nations. On the streets of Islamabad, there was relief too that the release of the Indian pilot meant the threat of confrontation was diminishing. Following the collapse without agreement of the President Trump and Kim Jong-un summit in Hanoi, very different versions have emerged of the reasons for the failure. Speaking in Manila, the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo focused on the key issues of the dismantling of North Korea's Yongbyon nuclear facility in return for the lifting of sanctions.
They were pretty expansive with respect to what they were prepared to do at Yongbyon, but there were still not complete clarity with respect to the full scope of what it is they were prepared to offer. It's one of the things we are anxious to get back to the table so we can continue that conversation that will ultimately lead to peace and stability. I think the president had it exactly right. He said they basically asked for full sanctions relief. That's true. They basically did ask for that.
However, in Hanoi, North Korea's Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho maintained that they had proposed to dismantle permanently all of their Yongbyon nuclear facilities in exchange for the partial lifting of U.S. sanctions, those that affect people's livelihoods. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu may be indicted on charges of bribery, fraud and breach of public trust. If convicted, he could be jailed for 10 years. He denies any wrongdoing and claims he's the victim of a left-wing witch hunt ahead of the upcoming election. Speaking to the nation, he was defiant.
I intend to serve you and the country as Prime Minister for many more years. Don't believe all the spin.
Following recent attacks on 2 of its Ebola treatment centers in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the medical charity Médecins Sans Frontières has suspended its operations in the region. The Ebola outbreak is the worst in the DRC's history, and the epicenter is the North Kivu province, where the unknown assailants struck.
They set fire to areas that were not for treatment, like the changing and utility rooms, which were burned down. But in any case, the treatment center is no longer operational whatsoever.
In Senegal, Macky Sall has been re-elected as president, winning an outright majority of 58% of the votes cast in Sunday's election. His supporters were jubilant. But elsewhere in the capital, Dakar, student protesters took to the streets to voice their opposition to the result. And finally, a light show with a difference. Visitors to an igloo hotel in Lapland had the perfect view. And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Thanks, Joyce. Let's bring in Ayotunde Balogun now with sports news.
Many thanks, Marachi. Swiss maestro Roger Federer moved to within one victory of capturing his 8th Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships title, which could represent the 100th of his career. The Swiss superstar cruised past Borna Coric in a comprehensive 6-2, 6-2 victory over 67 minutes for a shot at history. If the 37-year-old is to join Jimmy Connors as the second man in the Open era to reach a century of singles trophies, he will have to snap the 8-match winning streak of Stefanos Tsitsipas.
Game, set, match. Federer by 2 sets to love. 6-2, 6-2.
Meanwhile, Stefanos Tsitsipas will break into the top 10 of the ATP rankings for the first time on Monday after beating Gael Monfils in a thrilling 3-hour encounter for a place in the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships final. Tsitsipas recovered from a set and 1-3 down in a high-quality 4-6, 7-6, 7-6 victory over the in-form Monfils. The 20-year-old Greek is now 8 matches unbeaten.
6-4. Second set, Tsitsipas. 7 games to 6.
Largest federal capital territory, Abuja, will on April the 11th play host to the FIFA Women's World Cup Trophy, which begins the tour of 24 countries ahead of this year's edition of the global showpiece in France. The trophy will be first berthed in Yaoundé, Cameroon, before coming to Abuja, and will then move to Norway, Germany, Italy, England, Scotland, Netherlands, Spain, and Canada before ending at the World Cup venue, France, in the month of May. According to FIFA, women football legends Christine Lilly and Laura Georges will be leading the trophy tour delegation. FIFA has confirmed that former Papua New Guinea Football Association President David Chong has been banned from all football-related activities for 6.5 years for offering and accepting gifts as well as conflict of interest. Along with the ban, which comes into immediate effect, the former FIFA Vice President Chong was also fined $100,300. Real Madrid have sacked youth team coach Alvaro Benito after he made negative comments about their first team on a radio program during Wednesday's 3-0 defeat to their Spanish rivals FC Barcelona. During Real's defeat in the Copa del Rey, Benito singled out midfielders Toni Kroos and Casemiro for criticism in the scathing assessment of the European champions' performance. And that's a wrap in sports news. The news at 10 continues shortly.
And the main news again. The APC National Working Committee today suspended Governors Ibikule Amosun of Ogun State and Rochester Okorocha of Imo State over alleged anti-party activities. The NWC queried Ondo State Governor Rotimi Akeredolu on the same issue. Also today, the National Peace Committee met with President Muhammadu Buhari and presented details of the PDP's electoral grievances. At the Federal Executive Council today, the President also asked Nigerians to brace up for 4 tough years ahead. And Somali Special Forces today killed all 3 Al-Shabaab gunmen using civilians as human shields after taking over a building in central Mogadishu. That is the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I am Amarachi Ubani. Good night. Enjoy the weekend.